Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of NASCAR Mount Rushmore, where every single week I go through my Mount Rushmore of every NASCAR track on the schedule. But this week we are going to be doing it a little bit different. We don't have a lot of races at Circuit of the Americas. Some of you that watched last week's episode, at the time, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do for COTA because we've only had, I think, 5 races. We've hardly had any races. We've had 5 races at COTA. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different for this week at COTA, and that is going through the 1990s Road Warriors Mount Rushmore. So what do I mean by that? The best road course racers in the Cup Series in the 1990s. In the 1990s, so 1990 to 1999, they only raced 2 road courses a year every single year. And some of you that have been NASCAR fans for years know exactly which 2 courses I'm talking about. That would be Sonoma Raceway and Watkins Glen International. At that point, Sonoma was known, I think, as Sears Point. At that point, it was named Infineon for a little while. It's had many different names over the years, but Sonoma and Watkins Glen. So I went through all the stats from the 1990 season to the 1999 season and picked out my 1990s Road Warrior Mount Rushmore. So let's begin to go through it. We got some interesting drivers on here. I think some of them aren't going to be much of a surprise. When I went through some of these stats, I was pretty surprised by some of the stats I saw, especially by one of these guys who, the guy I'm thinking of right now, was the GOAT of 1990s road courses. And I personally thought it was probably going to be somebody else. But I know who the GOAT of the 1990s road courses in the Cup Series are, and we'll get to him in a little bit. But we're first going to start with this driver right here, and that would be Rusty Wallace. Rusty Wallace, 2 wins during the 1990s on road courses, 10 top 5s, 12 top 10s, and 180 laps led. Rusty Wallace, I think most people know Rusty Wallace from his short track abilities. He's one of the greatest short track racers in the history of the Cup Series. I don't think a lot of people know how great he was on road courses. And I knew how good he was. I just didn't think he was going to be that good. I didn't think Rusty was going to be that good on the road courses. And he performed. He performed quite a bit. You have to keep in mind, during all these years, there was 20 races. So they raced 20 races on road courses, and Rusty finished top 10 in 12 of them. So there was only 8 races where he didn't finish in the top 10. And also at this time, you saw a lot of mechanical failures. So that's not just giving the respect to Rusty. That's also giving the respect to the number 2 team during that time, and the fact that they didn't really have many DNFs at these road courses, especially at road courses, because it's a track that a lot of these teams don't race very often. So the cars might react in a certain way, and something going to get broken. Something going to get broken. And Rusty Wallace, one of the best road course racers of the 1990s. And now we'll move on to the second driver. And before I ended up looking up the stats, I personally thought this guy was going to be the GOAT of road courses in the 1990s. But you also have to keep in mind, this driver that I'm about to name didn't race all those races because he didn't join the Cup Series till 93, I think. And that is Jeff Gordon. Yeah, Jeff Gordon had 5 wins in 14 races. His first full-time season, of course, being in 93, had 5 wins, 9 top 5s, 10 top 10s, and 286 laps led in 14 races. In 14 races. I looked up the stats. In those 14 races, he led more laps on road courses than anybody else in the 90s except for one driver who I'll get to in a moment. But other than that one driver, Jeff Gordon had the best stats. He had the most wins in that. He won a quarter of the races in the 90s at the road courses when he didn't even race all the races. He won 5 out of 14 races. That's more than a third of the races that he competed in on road courses that he won. And I think there's a legitimate argument for him to be the GOAT of road courses in the 1990s for the NASCAR Cup Series. But nonetheless, just imagine if he started racing full time in 1990. I can't even imagine. He definitely would be the GOAT of road courses, I would say. Actually, no, maybe not. Maybe not. I'm thinking more about it. I still don't know if he would. He would have to win a couple more races, I'd say, because the next guy I'm about to name right here, in my opinion, is the GOAT of road courses in the 1990s, and honestly came as a little bit of a surprise, and that is Mark the Kid Martin. I knew he was always good on road courses. I knew he was one of the best in the 90s on road courses, but I did not know he was this good. In 20 races, he won 4 times, which is pretty good. Won a fifth of the races, 15 top 5s, and 19 top 10s, 362 laps led. 19 top 10s. He finished in the top 10 in 19 out of the 20 races. And I looked it up. The only reason he didn't finish top 10 in 20 of those races because he had a mechanical failure in the one race he didn't get a top 10. So he probably would have went 20 for 20 and not finished outside the top 10 at a road course one time in the 90s. I don't think in my opinion, there isn't much. There is a slight debate I say you could make just because Jeff Gordon didn't race all 20 races. Maybe if he raced all 20 races, maybe he would have gotten like 7 or 8 wins, and then you might have to give it to him just because of the amount of wins that he has. But 19 top 10s in 20 races at road courses, that is an insane stat. That is an insane stat. Just phenomenal. All right, let's move on to the last driver on this Mount Rushmore. And this one, I think there's a debate between this driver and a couple of different drivers, and it might come as a surprise to some of you. It came as a surprise to me. I didn't think this guy was going to touch my list. There was 3, 4, or 5 names I probably had in my mind before looking at stats before this driver, and that is Swervin' Irvin. Ernie Irvan had so much success at road courses in the 90s. He only raced 18 races at the road courses. He did miss 2 races during the 90s at road courses, but in those 18 races, he won 3 times, 7 top 5s, 9 top 10s, and led 143 laps. Swervin' Irvan, he was a really good driver. I'd say he's one of the most underrated drivers in NASCAR history. He's a driver that not a lot of people talk about. When people talk about him, they more often than not talk about his injuries or his personality. They don't really talk about him on the racetrack as much as they talk about those things. But he was great on the road courses. I did debate this last spot between a couple of different drivers, but just the stats that Ernie Irvan had, especially only racing 18 races, I had to put him in here. I definitely debated a little bit between him. The 3 main guys I was debating between this last spot was him, Dale Earnhardt, and who was the other? Ricky Rudd. Those were the guys I was really debating for this spot to get this last spot. Another driver that I was thinking would probably be in the mix, but honestly didn't do quite as good as I thought he did at road courses in the 90s, and that was Terry Labonte. Terry Labonte was very consistent, but he didn't win a single road course race in the 90s, but he was pretty consistent, usually running anywhere between like 6th and like 15th. But I had to put Swervin' Irvan in this last spot. Ernie Irvan is the last spot on my Mount Rushmore. So just to look it over one more time, Rusty Wallace, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, and Ernie Irvan are my Mount Rushmore for road courses in the 90s. The 1990s Road Warriors. And the GOAT of the 1990s Road Warriors would have to be Mark Martin. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about that? Do you agree with my Mount Rushmore? Do you agree with my take that Mark Martin was the GOAT of road courses in the 1990s? Let me know your thoughts and give me your Mount Rushmore in the comments. But for now, tune in next week for Mount Rushmore once again next week, as we'll be going through the Mount Rushmore of Phoenix Raceway. Right before I end up going to Phoenix Raceway, we'll be camping at Phoenix Raceway, being there all weekend. Same thing with Las Vegas Motor Speedway, camping in the infield at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I'll be there all weekend as well. So next week, I'll once again be going through my Mount Rushmore, but that of Phoenix Raceway. One person I'll guarantee is already on there is Kevin Harvick. There's going to be 3 other drivers on there, but I guarantee Kevin Harvick is going to be on there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments about the Mount Rushmore I went through today. But for now, I'm Trackside Larry saying peace.